Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, Year 7. Welcome to lesson 4 of your lesson on the design process. So before we start, let's just make sure the workspace is clear, tidy and free of any distractions as normal. What you're going to need today is some different coloured pens to help make notes, some paper to do work on. You can print the lesson page out if you're able to. And throughout the lesson, as normal, guys, we're going to ask you to stop, pause the screen and complete the work, then once finished, carry on to play. So as normal, we'll start with 4 minutes to complete the do now. Okay, there are your 8 questions, so press pause, and then we'll come back and look at the answers. Okay, so we're now going to look at the answers. So what is a mind map? A diagram used to visually organise things. So there's all the answers, guys. I'm not going to go through them this week. They are there for you. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this video a little bit shorter than the previous ones. Okay, so pause the video now, make sure you got the answers, green pen your work, and then let's carry on. So today we're going to be looking at specifications. Okay, so what is a specification? So a purpose to begin with is why it's needed. What is the purpose of something? So why do we need a specification? Okay, so that's what a specification is. That's the purpose, and a specification is really important, basically, aspect of the design process. It's often written up as a sort of end of research work. It's a bunch of bullet points, which we do before we create some design ideas. That then, when we're doing our ideas, make sure that all of our ideas we create really link to the research that we've done. So our specification is basically going to be a list of points outlining your product to look at things like size, color, shape, functions, which is what it does, the cost that it might be, and the safety. Okay, if you need to pause the video to make those notes, feel free. I'm now going to move on. So, as listed there, design specifications use a list of points that refers to your research work. As we've talked about in previous lessons, research could be anything. It could be questionnaires, surveys, interviews, existing product analysis. That could be ones that we find on the internet or ones that we could actually find in front of us. Could be watching customers use products. Okay, for example, if you're wanted to design a new vacuum cleaner, for example, then you might watch somebody and observe someone using that product. Look at how they use it, look at what annoys them, look at their typical usage. Okay, location visits, see where the product might be used. Again, if it's a vacuum cleaner, go into people's homes, look at those typical things that are in the way. So sofas often have quite a low sort of gap, so you want to design a Hoover that can get under that gap. Okay, look at size of the bedrooms, look at where plug sockets are. Okay, if you're making a Hoover which has got a cord. And then obviously in case of producing some conclusions about it. Okay, those points need to be measurable so we can test the product against those criteria. Okay. Now, Access FM is something that we really use as a guide to structure your specification. Okay, now Access FM, okay, is a acronym that's used to help you remember all the points. Okay, so we'll go through those next one. Just quickly on what's measurable. Okay, really important. You can't just say the product must look good. Okay, because that's different people's opinions. To measure this, you could be rewritten so the product must be appealing to my target market. Okay, this way then at the end, once you've completed your design work, you could show them your design ideas, let them have a look at them, get the feedback. So Access FM, aesthetics, what the product looks like, the theme of it. So is it like a football theme, or is it a cartoon theme? Is it based on a specific game or something? What colours, lettering and patterns, all about how it's going to look. Customer, who's going to use it? What's your target market? That should be age and gender. And again, we look at for about a sort of 5 to 10 year gap. Cost, how much do you expect the product to sell for? Okay, really vital, really important. Environment, what impact will your product have on the environment? Okay, and consider the materials you're going to use. We know that wood is renewable. Okay, we can grow more. It's never going to run out, whereas plastic comes from oil. Bad for the environment, not renewable. So think about those things. Size, what size do you think is a good idea for your product? Okay, too big, it's going to take up too much space. Too little, okay, it might not produce the light. Safety, how are you going to make sure it's safe to use, not only by the person who's using that product, but also by other people who might come into contact with it. Okay, any children or young children who might come to see it. And then function, what your product is going to do. You're obviously designing a low voltage lamp, but could it do anything else? Okay, and then materials and maintenance. what materials are you going to use, okay, and how are you going to keep your product in good working order. Okay, so materials and environment do sometimes link, but we need to talk about why they might link. Okay, so if we're going to use wood for one piece because it's easier or more sensible to make the sort of the structure of the box out of that. However, if we want light to shine through, then we can't use wood. We might have to use some kind of translucent plastic. Okay, pause the video and make you some notes on those. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So your first activity is going to take about 20 minutes. Okay, use the Access FM guide and create a specification for your low voltage light. What I mean by the guide, this slide here. Okay, so you should be answering all of those questions in your specification. Okay, don't be scared to pause and rewind the video as we've discussed, okay, to make sure you can do that right. So pause the video, have a go at that, make sure you're using the slide previously. You might just want to scroll back while you're working on it and answer all of those questions about creating a specification for your low voltage light. So for example, what do you want it to look like? Do you want it to be bright colours? Do you want it to be sort of modern colours like silvers and blacks? Do you want any specific patterns on that? Okay, customer, we've talked about this. Customer will come from your design brief that you've done in previous lessons. Okay, so who's going to use it? Who's your target audience? So pause the video, have a go at that, and we'll come back and have a look at how we got on in a second. Okay, so a bit of feedback. So because it's the first time that most of you have probably done a specification, okay, it's not going to be perfect, but the things to check are, have you answered all of the questions? Have you explained why on each of the points? And that's something that's quite often missed. Okay, if you haven't explained why, go back and add those details too. And then finally, are the points you've made measurable? Remember what we said earlier about measurable. Can we actually do a test once we've made the product that checks, or where we're designing the product that checks whether your design meets that specification? Okay, so as again, a redo. If you'd like to have a go, use the feedback above, try again and see if you can do a better job, or simply use that feedback to improve what you've already done. And that brings us to the end of today's lesson. So a nice short lesson in terms of video. Like I said, I tried to keep it a bit shorter. Okay, you do have a quiz to do it about today's lesson. So go to the tinyurl.com/YCZRLVD6. As always, you must type that into the main address bar rather than Google searching it. Or if you've got a smartphone, use your camera. Most cameras app will pick up their code if you hover over the code and take you directly to the form, or download the QR code reader app. Both go to the same place, both go to the form where you can actually complete that work. Okay, that concludes the lesson. Any questions, please feel free to email your teachers. Okay, you should all have those details available to you either on your school website or however your teacher has sent you this work. Okay, have a lovely rest of the week and I'll speak to you next week.